Ben Utecht, what are you doing?
What's up, Coach?
Just hanging out talking to you, highlight of my day. Not that any of my other coaching clients would want to hear that, but you are the highlight of my day, man. Because so here's what people need to know. Like we have known each other for a while via Zoom
Yeah,
and phone calls. We've never met live, not yet. And there's certainly a mutual respect there. And I know a little bit about your story, but I don't know all of your story.
right.
And it just struck me one day, you and I are talking about some other initiatives that we're working on together. And it struck me one day that what the heck am I thinking? I need to have Ben on the show. If anybody's all in, as you will quickly learn, it's Ben. Like every time I talk to him, there's a gauntlet toss, there's a challenge issued, there's an encouragement. It's like this guy doesn't just like move through life in neutral. He is redlined in a great way. So Ben, welcome, man. So glad to have you here.
Thank you, and it's refreshing to be able to say Coach again. It's been it's been 10 years now since I've been on an NFL football field and
Wow.
surrounded myself with great coaches, and so to just be on with you today, Coach, is a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, buddy. Well, this is a different kind of coaching, but there's a whole lot of similarities, right? And the
Absolutely.
people that have been around me for a while know that one of my all-time favorite coaching quotes was Tom Landry, who said, "A coach is someone who tells you what you don't want to hear, who helps you to see what you don't want to see, so that you can be who you've always known that you can be."
It's good.
Tom frickin' Landry, come on, man, with the hat, like, come
Yeah.
on.
Well, that's one of the unique things about sports is that coaches actually carry a very parental role, and
Yeah,
and that's what makes that's one of the things that's very different from professional sports and from corporate America is you got to remember there's no HR department in professional
great,
football,
great
right?
point.
And there's
Yeah,
there's there's pros and cons to that, but one of the pros is that it's very common and celebrated to have very deep and meaningful relationships with the coaches that you have in
yeah,
football because a lot of guys come out of families, broken homes, they don't have dads, and coaches fill that role. So
you
it can be
bet.
a very powerful relationship.
Man, I love that, and I wanna learn so much more about that from you because that again, people that have known me for a while know that that was never part of my life. Like, that was just never sports was never a part of my life. I was reasonably good at volleyball, I was reasonably good at track and field, but I was much more interested in girls than I was sports, and I just never got in that lane. So it never happened, but later in life, I see that. I mean, I see it with, Tiger, I see it with, Coach Greg, what is his last name? The hockey coach from UMass,
Okay.
took them from last place to 61 D1 teams national championship in 3 years, and he's just got this amazing story that
Wow.
he tells about how these young men need to feel uniquely seen. That's the way he puts it, right? And it
Yeah.
reminds me of a kind of a Tony Dungy kind of approach where without the spiritual component, but he's just all about these young men. Like I'm pouring into them and
Yeah.
they need to know that I see them and that I can try and that they can trust me.
Yeah.
It's pretty special. So dude, let's jump to you because you and I could talk about anything for days,
Sure.
clearly. But the viewers of this that are watching it on YouTube, listeners that are listening to this while they're pounding it out on the road or the treadmill or under some heavy weights like you might be doing, um, you always comment about how you fill out your t-shirts differently. So whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a fact, man. It's a fact. So, but I'm thinking what might be interesting, it would be to have people learn what you're doing now and then kind of backfill how you get there, right? It's easy for me to talk about Super Bowl champion and your amazing singing voice and all that, but I'd rather people sort of hear where you are right now in your life and then how you got here. So if they go to your website to hire you as a speaker or as a coach, they're going to see one word that I think is going to surprise them, and it's your focus on culture.
Yes.
So, Ben, like,
Yeah.
come on, dude, how'd you wind up here?
Yeah. Listen, the first word you'll see on my excuse me, on my website is believe.
Yeah,
Believe, right? Everything that everything that I'm passionate about now in my life revolves around the power of belief.
Yeah.
The power of belief being the foundation of chosen championship culture. And it's been a long road, Bill, to be honest with you. It's been a
Mm,
tough decade for me.
yeah.
Um, Transitioning out of the NFL, out of an identity that really has been my life since I started playing tackle football in fourth grade, and so I spent my entire 30s trying to rediscover who I am. And
Yeah, man.
so it's really been an incredible 12 months, past 12 months for me because um, I've had so much clarity now in the lane that I'm supposed to be in, and that is
Nice.
passion for culture and my passion for people, and
Nice.
really taking that foundation of servant leadership that I experienced in Indianapolis with the Colts and Tony Dungy, and really asking deep questions about how can we take what was so powerful out of that locker room and out and from the mind of that coach, the first to win a world championship on servant leadership. How can I be used as a tool to bring that to the world? And and within the last 12 months, that's what has happened. And so I've formed some great partnerships. I'm working with some incredible technologies, with some incredible people like yourself, and I've I can say with really pure joy for the first time in the last 11 years that this is it. This is my calling, and so
Nice.
I'm excited to be right now. I'm a fractional executive. I play a chief culture officer in a few different companies, and kind of dedicate my time to helping them build chosen culture that is scalable across the entire organization, touching every single person and helping them become the best they can be.
So, Ben, I got to interrupt you because it's the very first time I've heard anybody use the term fractional executive.
Hmm.
Because normally when you hear fractional, you hear like jet ownership,
Right,
right?
sure.
Like
Yeah.
Gulfstreams and net jets and,
Don't have
maybe,
that.
right? Maybe, maybe timeshares or whatever. But it's completely intuitive. It makes sense that if a company says, "Well, I'm not sure that we need a full-time executive at our company," or nor would you have the interest in necessarily aligning with one company. But what I hear you saying is what you learned, particularly through your time with Tony Dungy and the Colts, but I know there were other experiences that bring more texture and color to you there.
Yeah.
You're able to bring that into companies and presumably help them either determine or decide on and then articulate and probably coach to their culture. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, that's primarily what it is, and a lot of it comes down to the capacity of the individual, and so you know as I kind of step back and look at a week schedule for myself, I'm able to really identify the amount of time that I need to spend with the two or three organizations that I'm focused on in order to help them achieve their culture goals. And what I think is going to happen over time is that's really going to shrink, and it's going to become something that really focuses on one organization. But where I'm at now is really having this opportunity to
Nice.
touch multiple entities, and it's helping. It's really helping me grow as a kind of a new corporate athlete, if you will, and
Yeah.
really get my programs into these organizations, help them achieve, the chosen culture they want, and then really taking me to another level of depth in my own profession.
It's so cool, Ben, because people often ask me, I've been doing this a long time, 20 years of coaching and we were talking to your partner Rick the other day and another venture and he was surprised. Well, I don't think you were on the call, but he was surprised to hear that I would have 12 coaching sessions a day. And he was like, Rick, right? He's like, dude,
Yeah.
12 coaching sessions a day, like therapists don't do that. And so I just take for granted that we historically have done a lot of sessions every day. And what that means is, when you're in and out of highly successful people's lives who are willing to pay me $1,000 an hour for coaching, right? That's kind of a selected group if they can afford that kind of money for coaching.
Yeah.
You start to see some patterns. And so people ask me a lot, like, well, so what do you see, coach, with these highly effective people? And I don't think you'll be surprised to hear this. The one common denominator, there's lots, but if there's one that's always there, it's always discipline, Ben. Always.
Yeah.
And it comes from different places. It can come from sports, it can come from martial arts, it can come from music, it can come from serving in the military. It can there's any number of like I've got an 18-year-old granddaughter right now that was skating at, I don't know, 8, and she would have to be at the rink at 4:30 in the morning before the hockey team showed up. And I told her parents, I said, look, maybe she's going to be a gold medal, skater, but I don't even care about that. What I care about is the seeds that are being planted in that young woman right now, of knowing that if I want to have something different, I have to show up differently.
Yeah.
And so I would just love to hear you speak to that, because you're clearly that guy in so many areas of your life. But like, where did you figure that out? Was it tackle football as a kid? Was it parents that helped you to see that? Where did you learn discipline first?
Yeah, I definitely think it was organized sports from the very beginning, and that's why I love being a part of a team.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
when you step into an NFL locker room in a world championship program, every single minute of every single day is is intentionally designed for you to reach your potential.
Hmm.
And you are surrounded with world champions. You walk into a room with Peyton Manning, and you walk into a room with, you know, Marvin Harrison, and the list goes on and on. We have, 5 Hall of Famers that are just on the offense
Oh
in that
man.
locker room. And so
Yeah.
these people are already living this lifestyle. They're practicing what they preach. They're walking the walk. And when you step into that, you experience the fruit that comes out of this.
Mm,
And so it changes the way you think about it.
yeah.
I think at times we can get frustrated with discipline because it we feel like it constricts us or holds us back.
Right.
The reality is, especially in sports, is that when the more discipline you have, the more freedom you have to actually
I
be.
was so hoping you were going to use that word,
Yeah.
man, because right now Jocko is going good. Right? He
Yeah.
has a t-shirt that says discipline equals freedom. I mean,
Oh,
right? It's so counterintuitive, but you just nailed it. You just said the same thing.
yeah. And that it's because uh, discipline removes distraction.
Yeah. Wow, that's
And when
powerful,
you
dude.
when you
That's
remove
so powerful.
distraction, you get so much more clarity. You're so much more open to be innovative and creative. And and then when you bring in a culture that is built on love and respect,
Yeah.
actually pours into the human condition at work,
Yeah.
creates people that feel more valued and feel more full of purpose, and you've taught them discipline. Now you've got a fully committed team that is going to give you everything they have because they want to. And that's sustainable.
Oh, brother, I swear, I get you. Stuff rolls off your tongue, and I just think, oh, I need to stop him. I need to go back. I need to have him say that again. We could spend an hour on that. So you've got so much content, and I hope you're archiving it and breaking it up and saving it for a book or whatever else, wherever else all this goes.
Right.
Because right now I love the idea that you are 10 years out of, did I hear that correctly? 10 years out of the NFL,
Yep. Basically. Yep.
and you have been searching for what that thing is exactly. Now you're a talented guy. It's easy to get speaking gigs with your pedigree. Like, who's not going to put 300 pounds of handsome on the stage to talk to their sales team, right? Like, we know that's going to happen. Then you add into it, and I touched on this earlier, a ridiculously great singing voice. Like, what? This guy can sing?
Uh, Listen, I grew up in a very unique house. My dad was a pastor, but before he went into the seminary, he was a vocal music major and an instrumental music minor. My mom was a
Oh,
singer.
wow.
And so uh, they were also athletes. And so I grew up in a house that celebrated athletics and the arts.
So cool.
And I just fell in love with both at the same time. And so music has always been a huge passion. I started doing it professionally in college. In fact, my very first play in the NFL, Bill, was as a singer, not a football player. I got asked to sing the national anthem at a preseason game against the Bills.
Oh my
So
goodness.
Indianapolis first experienced me as a singer and not as a tight end.
Wow. I
Might
got
be,
goosebumps
might be
on
the
that just
only,
thinking about it.
it might be the only. I might be the only player ever in the history of football for that to actually.
That's hysterical. That's it. And this is on YouTube, please?
Gosh, I don't know. There are many that are on YouTube. I don't know if that game is.
All right. Well, I got to go track some of this stuff down to put in the show notes because that would be the kind of stuff that people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, well, I got to hear him sing. I totally got to hear him sing.
Yeah.
So our mutual friend, Mike Brennan, the president of Movement Mortgage, sent me, as you know, a very short video that he shot at a prayer breakfast or some event where you guys were at together. And he just kind of quietly shot you. I'm pretty sure you were singing Amazing Grace,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, like, and Rock My World. So,
Wow.
so anyway, look where I was heading with all of that, but I'm glad that we touched on the musical side and the artistic side. That's a whole nother side. Like, what medium are you drawn to as an artist?
Honestly, it's very contemporary. It's contemporary pop music, and it could fit into the world of Josh Groban, Michael Bublé.
Nice.
That
Yeah, yeah. Great
real.
place to be.
I call them just real solid contemporary singers.
Yeah,
Is kind of where my
yeah.
voice naturally goes towards. But
Hey Siri, play music by Ben Utecht.
Now playing Ben Utecht on Apple Music.
my phone did it too.
So that'll definitely be happening later. I can't wait, and I think you should all do the same thing. Sorry, I triggered your phone.
That's all right.
So here was my point, man. After all that you had experienced, and it's like Casey Crawford, right? Casey Crawford says, have you heard him tell his
I haven't.
Jovi story?
No, but I'm looking forward to it.
You
I'm going to be out this week. I'm going to be out there this week.
You're still singing here. That's hysterical. Cool. I know you are. And so make sure you say Coach Bill wanted me to make sure that I heard your Bon Jovi story. So here's the way that he describes sort of his why. And then I want to come back to the point I've been trying to make for 10 minutes, keep taking these side roads. Casey said, I'm 20, whatever. I'm a member of the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's very humble about how he describes it. Like, there's no member of the team that made less of a contribution to that victory than me. So, whatever. He's saying what he's saying. But and he said, I got a backpack with 10 grand because I sold a bunch of the tickets that they gave me. Right. So, and only you could appreciate how that works, right?
Yeah.
He said, I got 10 grand. We've just won the Super Bowl. Confetti is falling. My wife, Michelle, is over there. I get to hold the Lombardi trophy, and Bon Jovi is on the 50-yard line singing It's My Life. And I'm like, does it get any better than this? Like, are you kidding me? But the point was, that's where he realized he was drawn like you to servant leadership. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. Because his coach, I forget his coach's name, but on the airplane the next day, he says, hey, Crawford, how many fingers you got? And he says, five. I got 5, coach. And he says, yeah, well, I've only got 1 Super Bowl ring. Like, I want more, right? Because that's what the coach has got to do. He's got to drive towards next season. So anyway, dude, this is where I'm heading. You go through all of this.
Yeah.
All these other cool things that you can generate income, you're getting recognized for. Probably lots of things were tempting to you, but this is where you've landed. And I love that you describe it with so much clarity, because when you're in that place, like, nice, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, and you put it in a very kind of eloquent and unique way that I've not really thought much about it before like that. But I think I can't help but express the role that faith played in all of this, Bill. And I'm not not to be, this is really not a religious comment. It's just a reality about my identity and who I am. But,
Yeah.
you know, um, whatever anybody feels about church, it's really interesting to be a pastor's kid. And um, I, I, I just loved being in the church, watching my dad up in front of 400 people, 2 times a week, and watching him prepare that talk for that entire week and pour his heart into it
Mm,
um, because his whole mission was, how can I be used? How can the words that come out of my mouth have a positive impact on every single person that walks through these doors?
yeah.
Because I love them. And and honestly, that's a radical thing to really think about. And I got to watch that every single Sunday. And there's something about that purpose
Mm,
that every single person that comes into that space is a human being,
yeah.
and they matter, and they have been designed to do something special. And as leaders, we cannot lose sight of that. And so, as I've just spent a lot of time thinking deeply about what I want to do, what's going to be my legacy, right? Because I have an incredible family, a beautiful wife, 4 daughters, um, and the bar is high,
Yeah.
and I want to have an impact on their lives and the people that I come in contact with. And if I can help organizations create cultures that pour into the lives of people, and then go out and make social impacts on the world, then
Yeah.
I don't know. That to me it's almost like being able to live out when I watched my dad do every week in a different setting. I don't know. That might not make sense, but
Oh, it makes total sense, dude. The word that I thought you were going to land on was calling,
mm,
because that sounds like a calling.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is. That's what it is.
Well, brother, I love that you figured that out. I love that you heard that, as a man of faith and as a fellow man of faith. What you and I both know is God finds ways to kind of nudge us towards his plan. Like he already had this figured out when you were born, before you were born,
Yeah.
right? That's what's amazing about our God, big God. It reminds me of a story, what you just described. There's a guy that you may not have run across yet, but his name is Tim Sanders, and he was the chief, might have been culture officer back in the day for Yahoo, back when Yahoo was kind of vying back in the
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
browser, battles 20 years ago. I forget what his title was, but it was wild, whatever that, C-suite title was. It was something very unique, and he's a very unique guy. Wrote a book called The Likability Factor. The
Hmm.
Likability Factor. What a cool concept.
Yeah.
And I had shared the stage with him. There were probably 1,200 people in the audience, and I'm trying to remember what the sequence was. He had just spoken, and dude, he speaks from the heart. I mean, you can tell he is just, he is connecting with people's hearts. And we're backstage, the music's playing, there's some slide thing going while I'm getting mic'd up. And while the guy is taking the mic off Tim and getting ready to put it on me, I ask him, "Hey man, that was really spectacular. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. How do you feel about the group? How'd they feel to you?" And he looks at me with tears in his eyes and he says, "Coach, there is so much pain in that room."
Mm,
And I'm like, the music's playing, the lights are up, like nobody sees what he saw.
yeah.
Right? And I talked to him later, and he just said, and by the way, this was probably 2008. So the mortgage industry had just been hit hard. There was a lot of pain out there, and he was just intuitive about it. It was a visceral thing, man. He could feel it. And so to your point, if somebody's listening to this right now, and particularly if you're in leadership and you have an opportunity to address a group on Zoom, live, hopefully more and more, right, in a room full of people, If you roll back what Ben said to you about his dad and his sense of responsibility to that congregation, to touch hearts, Ben's sense of now my word calling for his life to be able to do the same thing, the way that my wife Tony will tell you that I show up every day because I do believe this is my calling. I do believe that this is something that I've been trained for my entire life, and that every single day my job is to squeeze as much juice out of every single day as I can, and not just have superficial connection with people, even just in this conversation with you and I,
Yeah.
but to have conversations of depth that are sometimes uncomfortable. But man, that's where growth comes from, right? I mean, you know that. Holy cow. Anything great you've ever accomplished, whether it was musical training or on the field, it comes from being squeezed, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the pillars of belief that I share about that was very unique within the coaching style of Tony Dungy was grace, right? And so the
Mm.
definition of grace is to act with kindness or clemency. But what I'm careful to highlight is that grace also comes with boldness. Grace also comes with strength. Grace also comes with consequence. Grace comes with reward. The spectrum that is within acting with kindness and clemency is not a soft skill.
Hmm.
It's a hard skill.
It is a hard skill.
And Coach Dungy had such an incredible ability to make you feel that like he cared about you, while telling you if you don't do your job well, you won't be on the team. I mean, it was,
Wow, that's a fine line, man.
I
Right?
once heard my dad described as a velvet hammer,
Nice.
and I think that that's what I mean.
Yep.
That's what I mean that's what I mean by the kind of grace that I experienced from Tony Dungy was a velvet hammer, an ability to communicate and to behave in a manner by which people always feel affirmed, but that that will challenge you to the core in order to help you become the best you can be. And sometimes that's full of joy and happiness and excitement, and other times it's full of you know seriously having to take a look at yourself in the mirror and come to terms. And
That's so good.
yeah,
That's so good, man. So there's a little book over here in my spiritual book section by Randy Alcorn that's called The Grace and Truth Paradox. And I mean, it's a little book,
mhm,
but he wrote about what you just described, that there, and the velvet hammer is a beautiful way to put it. I've heard that described before, but that's a beautiful way to put it. And I think I think the feeling it should be is I feel safe enough with you, and I know you care enough about me to speak truth to me.
mhm,
And that's been my role with a lot of clients, and very rarely has that been problematic. More often than not, it's like nobody's ever told me that.
mhm,
And it can be little things. It can be like I had a client once that was, he would talk over me. So at the end of every sentence, like he was already talking, right? And I stopped him and said, "Do you know that you're talking over me? Like this is like a bad episode of Seinfeld, like the overtalker." And he didn't realize it, but it was because he was so smart and he valued our time so much that he didn't want to waste a second. And
right,
I just challenged him and said, "Look, you're not hurting my feelings. It's just not efficient.
right,
And my fear is if you're doing it with me, you're doing it with referral partners, you're doing it with team members, you're doing it with your spouse, and you might be doing it with your kids."
yeah,
And so what we did is we broke that down into, some tools and exercises for him to, like, man, 3 count between the time the person stops talking
yeah,
and you respond, which feels like an eternity when I do it right now. But,
yeah,
it's the way that you learn that. And more often than not, it's me telling people they're not dreaming big enough. And my guess is you heard that from Coach Dungy
yeah,
in different ways, but it's like speaking into your ability.
mhm.
Ben, you're faster than that. You're smarter than that. You could be there. What position did you play?
He has a tight end.
Yeah. So, that's a thinking position, right? There's a lot going on for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, can you think of an example of that? Was there anything like that Coach Dungy called out in you that you can recall that, oh yeah, he helped me grow with that one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, well, one of the most powerful experiences that I had with Coach Dungy was um, watching him, watching how he reacted to a crowd of paparazzi, if you will, that had uh, gathered around the doors at the church after we stepped out of the funeral for his son.
Mm,
And as players, we're sitting there, kind of in disbelief and very angry, that these people would be there at this time.
yeah.
And Coach Dungy and his family came out, and the flashes and the photographers and the journalists, and all of a sudden he takes a 90-degree turn and he walks across the lawn, and he lowers the ropes, and he gathers all of these people around him, and he begins to celebrate his son's life, and he begins to tell them about his son's faith in Jesus, and he took a situation that I wanted to go over there with everything that I had and knock those people out,
You bet.
and yet here is this powerful leader who's using every opportunity that exists in his life to to share joy and love, and it just I couldn't believe it. And so you know and he did that on and off the field. I mean, that was just who he was in life and who he was in football. And um, in particular to football, I remember uh, an end of the game play against the Tennessee Titans. I push off of a strong safety, and I turn and catch this game-winning touchdown. And then all of a sudden, the flag goes up, and I got called for offensive pass interference, and then we lose the game. So
Oh,
in essence, I lost the game in front of millions of people watching all over, right? Didn't sleep much that night because I knew what was coming the next day. And I passed Coach Dungy in the hallway before team meeting starts, and he just stopped me. And he had his quiet strength, his gracious delivery to just say, Ben, how talented I think you are, but I did watch the film, and unfortunately, it really was a penalty, and this team meeting that we're going to have is not going to be easy for you, but hang in there, we'll get through it, okay, and we'll go out and we'll get better on the field.
wow.
And it wasn't easy. I got called out big time,
Yep.
and it was embarrassing and it was tough, but he coached me in a way that made me feel like he cared, and I went out and made improvements.
Yeah, man.
So
Wow, Ben, I love that. I love both of those stories, and I am suddenly developing a complete like appetite for. I want to read everything I can that Tony Dungy has ever written because I've not read his books, and I know that I need to.
yeah,
I did not know about the passing of his son. That moment in front of the church is phenomenal. I love that. And then I really loved that story because I didn't know where you're heading with that. I did hear something. I heard Russell Wilson tell a similar story recently.
mhm,
Um, but it was more, all I heard was just, it was an attitude that he went to go train harder. That's what he took from it. I didn't hear about a coach's word in his ear. He may have had one that was spectacular, but that was brilliant to be able to say, how talented I think you are. This is going to be tough for you, but we're going to get through it. How did that make you feel if you can take yourself back to that moment as you're sitting there and you're like, oh, if I could take that moment back, oh, if I could have just done this instead of that, like,
yeah,
but no, but how did his encouragement to
yeah,
you, the context with which to receive the criticism,
all right.
how did that affect you? How did you feel about that?
Well, I would say, and I'm sure you experience this even with high level executives, because we're all human beings, we still, no matter what our age, carry with us serious insecurities.
Mhm.
Um, and even at 40 years old, I can tell you that in the right group of people, I still have a fear of failure. I have a fear of what people are going to think of me.
Sure.
Are they going to actually think that I have the talent to do what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Do they see me as credible?
Right.
Right. So all of those realities exist, and so that being in an environment where I feel like he understood that about human nature, and
Mm.
he was able to speak and coach in ways that really tempered the insecurities.
You bet.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it just was, he was able to do things and to practice things in life and football that helped us overcome our fears
Yeah.
and and help us go deeper.
Yeah, it does make sense, and so first of all, this is really encouraging for me, like, what this is becoming is a coaching session for me, and I'll tell you why. Um, my industry. My industry is the mortgage industry, and I've been in it for 30 years, coaching in it for 20. And the mortgage industry has two tracks, right? There's the purchase track. So somebody buys a home, they get a mortgage. Second track is refi. And the refinance happens when interest rates are low enough that it makes sense for the borrower to either save some money on their monthly payment, pull some cash out, rate and term refi, whatever that might be. And we've been on that train for, I mean, if I'm honest, probably 11 years, probably since about 2010, rates have been low, which means we have people in the mortgage industry who have done very well over the last 11, 12 years, because we've been in a low rate environment. And what that means, Ben, is that the phone just rings, right? Like people just call, hey, Bill, we'd like to see if we could save some money. Could you help us take a look at that? Like, who doesn't love a business where the phone rings and people just need you?
Yeah.
Well, now we're shifting in this crazy world that we find ourselves in, inflationary, if not hyperinflationary. I don't know that I've heard anybody use the word hyper yet, but maybe I'll be the first. Because it's not just gas now, it's everything, right? Like we see dramatic inflation happening right now. And so what that means is, as well as what's happening in Ukraine, um, interest rates are going up, even though there's a slight dip just now. Overall, rates are going to be going up in an inflationary environment, which means the business is going to be slowing down, which means no matter how good you are, there are less inbound phone calls. So you've got to find yourself kind of doubling down on some old disciplines, some old activities you probably used to do that you needed to do more. So if you were talking to a group, just picture my group, right? You're up in front of 1,000 loan officers and their managers and people in the mortgage industry, and you're the keynote. And may this happen, by the way. I'll look forward to this day. And man, I'll be applauding you loudly and the first to leap to my feet at the end of your talk. But if you could encourage that group right now, so picture them out there. And Tim Sanders' comment about there's a lot of pain out there. There's a lot of uncertainty. There may not be pain yet, but there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, I'm not entirely sure what I need to do. You said earlier, discipline removes distraction. And that's kind of where my mind goes. Like I could see you having that up on one of your slides, like, you know what, you guys, this is what you need to be doing. I don't know, man. What would you tell that audience right now? What occurs to you as I set that
Oh
up?
yeah, I think that's. I mean, that's a Maxwellism, really, right? When you talk about the power of margin and you
Yeah.
talk power of taking your discipline and applying it to the hours that exist in your life in a day. And even that kind of structure can help you in very uncertain times because you have certainty within within the margin. You have certainty within the schedule. When you're I had a friend who was an executive that was out of work for almost a year, and I was so impressed because one of the things that they did in order to keep sanity was they put together an improvement schedule for their lives over those 10 months. And they scheduled out,
So good.
it was so good. They scheduled out their days, and even an even an hour of reading to improve leadership development, right? This person was an engineer, so they would carve out time in order to go deeper into Six Sigma and to
Nice.
the lean manufacturing process. So even though they were out of work, they were creating um, a defined schedule, providing discipline in their life in order to improve themselves, and it kept them whole.
So good.
It's
So
when,
good.
when we're idle and we're left to our own devices and we're in pain and we're broken, is usually when we're going to make poor and unhealthy decisions for ourselves. And so,
It's great.
yeah,
That's great, man. So people need to hear that, and I'm either gonna do a Facebook Live later today, or my next video, my weekly video will probably be based a lot about what we're talking about today, because I do think that's what our industry needs to hear right now. They need to be reminded of that. It's not fun. Nobody wants to hear, like, I liked lying around the couch drinking milkshakes, flipping through the channels. That was fun. I liked that. And I'm not saying everybody's been, completely lethargic, but it's certainly been easier than it will be right now. And it's like, you got to go put your tennis shoes on and go do some road work. Sorry,
yeah,
but that's what we got to do right now,
yeah.
buddy. I love this so much. I love this so much. So, what final thoughts occur to you as we get ready to wrap this up? And I am just so grateful for your time today, Ben. I love hanging out with you, and I really could, like, I could do this every week with you,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Oh, I appreciate it. As I've really been, thinking deeply about what's the differentiator going to be uh, over the next 10 years regarding culture, because
Mm.
it's the word that's talked the most about. It doesn't matter if it's business or if it's life, politics. I mean, culture, culture, culture. And one of the things that I do, Bill, when I work with teams, is I always ask people to write down their definition of culture. And it doesn't matter what company I've gone to and done that. It never surprises me that everybody defines it differently.
Mm.
And that's a problem. That is the subjectivism of culture. And so what we really want to do is begin creating strategies around how do we make this paradoxical idea objective, a
Mm.
tool that can actually be practiced, that actually improves performance, that actually creates people that feel more valued and more full of purpose. And that's really what I'm trying to do. And honestly, what it came down to was the creation of a creed.
Nice.
I gotta tell you that the definition of a creed is a set of beliefs that guides the behaviors and actions of people and communities.
Mm.
And to me, that is a differentiator. It's a company going deeper than just writing down a mission, vision, and value statement,
Yeah.
because they sit around a board table and they talk about what they believe in order to write those statements. And I'm saying, let's go back to the beginning and capture the what, why, and how of those beliefs, and
So good.
let's operationalize those. Let's make
I love that you were. If you weren't going to use it, I was going to use it, because that is operationalizing a vision or a mission, or a culture. That is so well said, man. And what comes to my mind when you say creed is, I think of the Navy SEALs ethos, right?
yes,
Like arguably at the pinnacle of Mount culture, right?
exactly,
I think of, in corporate America, I think of Disney, and I think of Chick-fil-A.
yeah.
Right? How is it that you can get a 16-year-old kid with skin trouble in a drive-through at Chick-fil-A, that when you say thank you, they say, it's my pleasure? How does that happen? They've
Exactly.
operationalized what matters to them.
It's the same way. Look at the Toyota way. Toyota outsells every other car manufacturer combined, and it's because they have created a belief system that they actually practice.
Mm.
One of those beliefs, um, and my brother-in-law is a lean manufacturing expert for Toyota. And
Nice.
he traveled to Japan with the masters, and one of their core pillars of the Toyota way is a Japanese phrase that says "ningen sei sanshu," and it transliterated into English means love and respect. But when he
Wow.
went to Japan and worked with the masters and learned what the actual symbols mean, okay, ningen sei sanshu means to hold precious that which makes a person human, is
Wow.
one of the core foundational beliefs of Toyota.
Wow.
Okay, and it's no surprise why they've had their success, because
Absolutely.
that's what they believe about every human that they hire into the
So
company.
cool, dude.
That's the stuff, man. That's the difference make. That's the
Yeah.
difference maker. And so that's
Right on.
that's what I'm that's what I'm hoping to do.
Well, I hope that if you've listened to this or watched this, you have been challenged like I have, excited like I have. I felt my heart rate go up several times, so that's always a good sign. And man, I would encourage you to just like go hang out with Ben. What's the easiest way for people to find you and just stay connected to you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I would say LinkedIn probably. I'm very accessible, so please, check me out on LinkedIn, reach out, say hello. Look forward to making those connections, and
Yeah, man.
and that's the best way.
Cool. Well, buddy, you're a stud. You're a force of nature and lightning in a bottle. And I am excited to be getting to know you better from a point a little further down the road. It's
Yeah,
pretty fun to watch where you're at with 40, to see you step into your calling and to begin to have an impact on the people that come into your venue.
yeah.
So look forward to having you continue to call me coach as we continue to go down this path.
Sounds good, bud.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you.
Later.